Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Kent with Bent number 130, 12 Angry Kents, which has the most Kents of any thumbnail I've ever done, because it had 9. Now, some people might ask, Dapper, why aren't there 12 Kents? And to that I say, ask the guy who made the movie poster for 12 Angry Men, because I have no idea why there's only 9 people in it and not 12. Bent, you look lovely today.
Thank you. I feel lovely.
Oh, good. That is helpful. Would you like to tell everyone why it is that you are wearing a pink tutu?
Yeah, we met an incentive last week, donation incentive for the pink tutu.
And it's your second week in a row wearing a pink tutu.
Second of 3 in a row.
Well, maybe.
If we can make the incentive this week.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know, if we if we raise enough, then we I force Bent to put on a tutu under duress is what happens. Yeah. He's threatened. It's definitely what's happening. That being said, it's also the number to get another special avatar for my next video. I'm currently actually rendering frames for a brand new avatar. Those of you who are channel members may have seen it because I uploaded a test animation for it. So if you're a channel member, there's a members only video. You can see the video you can see that it exists if you're not a channel member, but you can't actually play it. But anyway, we're not here to talk about tutus primarily, or about new avatars primarily. We're here to talk about the nonsense that Kent Hovind says. So when last we left off, Kent Hovind was telling us how embryology is fake, I guess. It's really hard to figure out exactly what his point is, other than Ernst Haeckel bad, Gill pouches are fake, or they're folds in the skin, neither of which is true, but I also don't like the term Gill pouch, so I guess there's that. I really don't know what point he's trying to make, other than embryology is not evidence for evolution. But we're going to continue with that. But before we do, if you're new here, you might notice that we have a drink counter in both Klingon and English. You'll notice that the Klingon one is a little bit longer. It says Armakukta, which means how many times have we had a drink? Or how many times have we drank? Something like that. That's because there's no one noun that just means a beverage or anything like that. So, I don't know. I didn't have another way to put that in there. But anyway, it's there in Klingon. It's there in English. That's because we have a drinking game that we play with this. Now, before we actually get into the rules of the drinking game, I want to first point out that if you want to participate, you do not have to use alcohol if you don't want to. If you want to drink water, juice, soda, tea, coffee, if you want to do something other than drink something, if you want to use a vape pen or something, whatever you want, it's fine. This is not you better be drinking. I have some rum and Coke, but Bent, what do you have?
I have tea.
Yeah.
Iced tea.
There you go. See? An exploding TARDIS mug. Very nerdy. I approve.
Yes, it is.
All right.
I love this mug.
Now, that being said, if you do choose to participate, and you choose to participate while using an intoxicating substance, please be careful, pace yourself, know your limits, and especially after this, do not go out, drive a car, operate heavy machinery, or text your ex. The Dapper Dinosaur channel, myself personally, as well as Bent Hovind, accepts no liability or responsibility for your bad decisions while under the influence of any substances, even if you got under that influence as a result of playing along, because it's up to you to stay safe in that circumstance. Know your limits. That being said, let's get into the rules. So first of all, this is one with Kent Hovind. So when I say the Creationist or Kent Hovind, those are more or less synonymous, right? We're talking about Kent Hovind. It's just I have a few other shows that share the same drinking rules. So sometimes I say the Creationist in question or something like that, just to keep it nice and generic. But that being said, if Kent Hovind says something that's so dumb we just kind of have to take a drink, we'll take a drink for that. If Kent Hovind says something that is actually factually correct, that he is not just quoting from someone else, it has to be his own thoughts, we'll take a drink for that. Now, at that point, we get a little bit generous as time goes on, because usually he doesn't get too many of those. And, sometimes I'm thirsty. Also, Royland for $5 says, Ben, did you get a message about a food delivery Friday? AIG is a bag of dicks ×3 with Kent Get Bent and a Godzilla.
I did not get that message, but I appreciate it.
All right. Well, there's our first drink, because that actually checks off 2 of our drink rules. So, one of them is that if you send anything to the effect that AIG or a bag of dicks as either a super chat or a membership milestone chat, we'll take a drink. Also, if you send a membership chat or a milestone chat that has Godzilla or Mothra or King Ghidorah as an emoji, we'll take a drink. Now, those are member-only emojis, so you do have to be a member to get those. Zachary Lohaki says, it's Tuesday night and I'm trying to stay off alcohol till Friday, but one of these nights I'll join you, Dapper Dinosaur. Look, if you want to, that's great. But also, if you're trying to stay off of alcohol, then just get some juice or some water or something. That's fine too. There is no pressure to play along with alcohol. I do it because as the host, I kind of feel like it's incumbent upon me to play along in the fullest sense. But I'm perfectly happy for people to play along in other ways. That being said, I'm saying that being said a lot. Anyway, I'm going to try to find a new transition. We're going to go with, so now, let's go back to the rules. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land, or if he tells a story that didn't happen. For instance, if he's pretending that he once was on a plane with a professor from Berkeley who seemed to know absolutely nothing about the Big Bang or evolution, and he won some hypothetical debate with that guy, we'll take a drink for that. Basically, anything where it seems like what's actually happening is Kent mixing up like an argument he won with a shampoo bottle with a real-life event, we'll take a drink. Another way we can tell is if it sounds like something that should go on r/that happened, we take a drink. That one is judgment-based, though, because we can't really prove one way or the other whether or not these stories happened, but, it's a judgment call. We'll also take a drink anytime Kent Hovind mentions the political party that was in power in, the mid-20th century in Germany that may have prompted a world war. We'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind does what we call an ad hominid. Now, you're probably used to ad hominem, and this is it's not really similar, it's just a pun, but this is when a creationist takes the single individual skeleton, Lucy, AL 188-1, I think. Double check me on that, someone. And then confuses what we know as on the basis of that one skeleton with all of our knowledge about any wider taxon to which Australopithecus afarensis belongs, whether it be Australopithecus, whether it be hominins, whether it be hominini, whether it be hominoids, any of that stuff. Fearmonger, aka Mr. Evolution, has been a member for 15 months and sends a blank membership milestone chat. Well, thank you very much for being a member for 15 months. That's pretty awesome. Rusty Longshanks has been a member for 9 months and is at the annual level, and says, I have nothing interesting to say, just wanted to make you drink with a Godzilla, a Ghidorah, a Mothra, an AIG as a bag of dicks, and of course, a drink. 288-1. Okay. And here's a drink for that. Fearmonger, if you did mean to send something with that and it just kind of screwed up. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll take a drink for that because you meant to send an AIG as dicks. Okay, there, we'll take a drink. I kind of figured that maybe you'd made a mistake and accidentally hit enter or something. I lost my train of thought. Where was I? Oh, right, the Godwin's Law type thing. All right, if we have Kent Hovind it's not clear where he's going, but either Bent or I, or both, make a prediction, and it turns out that we were right about what the next thing he's going to be talking about is, or even just a thing he's going to talk about in the future, we take a drink for correct prediction. If I screw up the show, like by, say, leaving a hot mic on or failing to unmute a mic when appropriate, I will take a drink for Dapper is a professional. We also have Trojan Source if Kent Hovind cites a source and it not only fails to support him, but it actively counters his point. We take a drink for that being Trojan Source. And I believe the last thing that I have not mentioned is that if anyone gifts memberships to the Dapper Dinosaur channel, that's right down there when you click the same dollar button as for Super Chats, which is a gift memberships option, we'll take a drink for each gifted membership, up to about 30 at a time. At that point, I'll just finish this drink and go get another one. So, Bent, have I missed any?
If Godzilla or Mothra come by audibly, we'll take a drink.
Yes, Godzilla or Mothra might come by audibly. Yes, that's a good point. I forgot about that one. All right.
Although that doesn't happen as often
that's
as it used to.
Well, yeah, that's in part because I've somewhat curated the things that can cause either of those, because sometimes they happen a bit much.
It did get excessive from time to time.
So I've done a few things to kind of curate which things can realistically cause that. That being said, which I did it again, darn it. I don't know why I have that stuck in my head today. That's okay,
Moving forward.
Moving forward. Yeah, there we go. I like that one. Moving forward. Are we ready for Kent Hovind?
As ready as possible.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to get any more ready in the next couple minutes, then we're ready.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Guess what? Glencoe biology. I've got it in my office there. Still teaches the human embryo has gill pouches.
Does it? Oh, it says gill slits. Okay, yeah, yep. Just want to make sure he's not lying about this 1994 textbook. And yeah, like I said last time, I don't like the term gill slits. They're not slits. They don't turn into gills. I think it's inappropriate to call them gill slits. I think you should call them pharyngeal pouches or pharyngeal arches, because that is what they are. Now, I get that, like, the word pharyngeal isn't in, like, you know, most school kids' vocabulary, but that's what school is for, is right? It's to teach them new things. So get it into their vocabulary.
It's not that complicated to learn.
It's really not.
Even for a child, you can say pharyngeal arch.
But the real question is, can they pronounce a voice pharyngeal fricative?
That is a different story.
Yeah. There's a few Bible scholars who I watch on YouTube, and I'm still trying to get them to even just attempt a voice pharyngeal fricative, which is a sound that was actually used in the early stages of Hebrew, like the stages that were used when, you know, biblical texts were actually being composed. It fell out of use in Hebrew pretty early on, but like, I'm curious. It's the sound that the letter ayin was made to make, whereas now it's just kind of a confusing letter that just kind of pops up in words. But yeah, anyway, here we go.
Proven wrong in 1874.
The existence of pharyngeal arches has never been proven wrong because they physically exist. You can just physically examine embryos. Whether it be because of, you took an embryo out of an egg, whether it be because, like I dissected a fetal pig, right? Like you can just check with embryos, right? Yeah, sure, sometimes it involves killing both the embryo and possibly the mother, which is, that's part of science. It's not ideal, but what are you going to do? But yeah, we can just check. They're there. They physically exist.
Here's a biology textbook used in the Troy State University, a college textbook.
Hey, I appreciate that this is actually photographs. I have, on this channel for years now, been saying I don't like it when textbooks use various drawings of these embryos because we have photographs, and I would rather that they have photographs of this, in part to avoid these claims of like, oh, well, these are just drawings that don't count. Just get a photograph in there.
Well, Kent doesn't believe in the photograph anyway.
Well, that's true. He probably thinks that these are drawings, even though they're clearly photographs.
Still teaching them. Human embryo has gill pouches.
Gill pouch is a little bit better than gill slits because they are pouches of tissue. I still don't like the word gill there, right? Because while that is the ancestral thing that these pharyngeal arches turn into, so for instance, in agnathan fish, like hagfish and lampreys, all of the pharyngeal arches, as far as I remember, do in fact turn into gills. In jawed fish, some of them turn into various glands and the jawbones. So like, not a huge fan of calling them gill anything, but I get it.
Biology, A Journey into Life, Arms in Camp. A terrible book as far.
Arms in Camp? What does that mean? Well, that's probably the publisher. He's probably saying the publisher name. Arms and Camp. That's probably okay. I thought that okay, that's probably it. At least that would make sense.
Loaded with evolution propaganda.
Imagine that, a biology textbook teaching you biology. Whoa.
Propaganda. Come on, Kent. Quit projecting.
Right.
Look at this. Look at this. Says it shows them a picture of a 5 to 6 week human embryo. But look what it says at the top. By 7 months, the fetus looks from the outside like a tiny normal baby, but it is not. What are they trying to say here?
That at 7 months, the baby is not at full term, and therefore it does not... Actually, we can check. Like, it was right on screen, right?
It was on screen. It said the lungs weren't fully developed yet.
Oh, did I just crash the media player? That's fun. Yes, I did.
Great.
So yeah, what it's... While I get that back, what it is saying very clearly is that, in fact, the embryo is not a fully grown, well, fully to term baby, and it has various, I don't want to say defects, but various organ systems that are not functioning fully, that would be functioning fully.
State University.
If
a college textbook.
This were a fully to term baby, which it goes on to say, right? Like, this isn't a secret that they're keeping on you. Now, of course, I'm very confident that what Kent is going to do is say that this is actually all about abortion, which, there we go, we're back to where that was. So, while I turn Bent off for a second so I can share this video back with him. Yeah, right there. The lungs and temperature regulation systems are not functional. More important, the central nervous system is... And then it continues on the next page, presumably. But, like, it's probably talking about something about the central nervous system not being completely functional. So, yeah, it's not saying that it's not a baby. It's not a normal, functional baby that is full term. Which is one of the reasons why severely premature babies at, like, 7 months often don't make it. Because they do not have the full development to survive on their own outside of the womb. Yeah, sorry for saying so you wouldn't be a professional if you didn't run into technical difficulties. No, that Jake Nelson, that is not a Dapper as a professional, because it's not a mistake I made, it's just the program crashed. That's the program thing. It has to be something that I could have prevented. So, like, if the power goes out, and that ends the stream, that's not Dapper as a professional, that's just the power went out. I have no control over that. Luck. Yeah.
It shows them a picture of a 5 to 6 week human embryo.
Mm-hmm.
But look what it says at the top. By 7 months, the fetus looks from the outside like a tiny normal baby. But
yes, I'm sure that's all copium, fearmonger.
But it is not. What are they trying to say here? It's not a baby at 7 months?
Nope, that's not what they said. If they had said that, they would have said, it looks like a baby at 7 months, but it's not. Instead, they said, it looks like a normal baby, but it's not, right? The word normal is there for a reason. It's because it's still a baby in most senses of the word, but it's not a baby that's ready to be born, right? That's why when you say that, like, oh, so-and-so had a normal birth, you can contrast that with a premature birth, right? Because they're not the same, because babies aren't normally born premature. That's why we call it premature, right? That's the kind of the whole point. I'm going to take a drink for Kent just deliberately misidentifying the entire point of this, which is about premature versus full term.
Right.
Well, what is it?
It's premature. 4%, because they're not normal babies, Kent.
That's a pretty low percentage.
Oh.
I mean, it's there. Like, there are babies that survive, but a lot of them don't.
Yeah, it's...
More than half do not survive.
Yeah, if you're born at 5.5 months, you don't have a great chance. But, like...
Based on what's on the screen, so...
Yeah,
My son back there running the camera was born at, I think, 7 months. And survived. Kind of small, but he made it.
Okay, I'm going to have a drink to talk about this. It's not a normal drink trigger, but I'm going to call it anyway, because I need a drink before I talk about this. As we've seen, Eric Hovind is in the audience for this. Most people know about Eric Hovind, who's Kent's son, who kind of also followed in his father's footsteps of doing, like, creationist ministry stuff. Fewer people know about his daughter Marlissa. She's not really publicly involved in any, like, Christian ministry stuff that I'm aware of. Although she did appear with Kent on America's Funniest Home Videos during her wedding, because Kent decided to leave his phone on and take a phone call while officiating his daughter's wedding. So that's a thing that happened. So, yeah, if you want to see Marlissa Hovind, you can check out Kent Hovind's appearance on America's Funniest Home Videos. I'm sure it's on YouTube here and there. But what most people don't know is that Kent has another son, Kent Andrew. There's a reason that most people don't know this, and it's because he largely doesn't talk about Kent Andrew. Because as you might have guessed from the fact that Kent Andrew was quite premature, he's faced some challenges in life, and from what I can tell, seems to have some special needs. And that seems to have always been the case. I will say that despite the fact that Kent has numerous times in the past few years, since he's been was kicked out of the home that he at one point shared with his wife, has gone on stream begging Eric and Marlissa to bring their kids over so that he can see his grandkids and his children. But what you haven't heard him do is try to get Kent Andrew to come by. Now, I have agreed to not give all the details of what I know about that relationship between Kent Andrew and Kent. But I will say this. It's not good, and it's not because Kent Andrew isn't trying to make that relationship good. It seems like, and I have very good reason to think that it's at least currently true, that Kent is more or less neglecting his special needs son.
That's a shame.
Yeah. Now, Eric Hovind has in fact, at various points, employed Kent Andrew, as has Kent, as a cinematographer and cameraman for productions. And as far as I know, that's what Kent Andrew does now, is he still works for Eric Hovind doing camera stuff. So, it's not like the whole family is just ostracizing the guy. He's got a relationship with his brother, presumably with his sister. I'm sure he's still talking to his mom. But yeah, he would like to have a relationship with Kent. Kent apparently isn't interested. So, I'm going to take a second drink, because it's not a fun thing to talk about, but when he brings up Kent Andrew, whom apparently he isn't even going to name, yeah, I kind of need a drink. Yeah, as Group 23 points out, Kent Hovind is ableist? What? Yeah, I know. How surprising. Okay. Man, that whole thing just really upsets me. I'm sorry, guys.
Moving forward.
Yeah, I'm going to try and move forward.
And he caught up for the size, but he made it. Kids born 5.5 months old survive, 34% of them.
Mm-hmm. Has anyone ever made the point that premature babies never survive? Because I don't think anyone has ever made that point. I don't know.
A 21-week-old baby. They were doing surgery.
Okay.
They knew something was wrong with the baby, so inside the mother, they cut the mother open, cut the uterus open to do surgery on the baby.
Yeah, DM artificially selected ceratopsian wing says, also remember Kent's joke, I have 2.5 kids. I do remember that, actually.
Yeah.
I also remember him saying after saying he has 3 kids, saying he has one of each. Yeah. I can't prove that he's making those jokes at Kent Andrews' expense, but sure seems like it. Also, sorry for pausing on this rather graphic bit. If you don't want to see something that's a little bit graphic, maybe turn away for a few minutes.
Baby's only 5 months along in development. The baby reaches out and grabs the doctor's finger.
Okay.
Tell me it's not alive. Okay.
Why would I tell... I'm taking a drink. No one is saying it's not alive. What? That's not the point anyone is making. Jeez.
What is he even talking about?
I have no idea. Francesca Pupo? Oh, I'm not sure. Please let me know. For $4.99 with their first super chat on a live stream, says, saw an anti-evolution sign in my area and felt like the prophet Darwin was telling me to support the channel. Keep up the great work, guys. Thank you very much. I am interested in what the anti-evolution sign was, because I don't live in a part of the country where those are terribly common, but I've seen them, and they're always wild. Also, there was a membership that was retracted, so thank you for being a member at the Amnio level, whomever you are.
Mm-hmm.
I hope everything's okay. Let's see. Kip Davis says, is this the same Bent who grinds the stuff out of Dapper Dino's intro music? Yes, this is in fact the musician behind Dapper Dino's intro music right here.
Yep, I make music. Yay.
He's got a Patreon if you want to get involved in him making some music. It's in the description.
Yes, I do. The link is below.
All right, let's hit play on this.
The angel of the Lord said, "Behold, thou art with fetus." Is that what they said?
I'm just going to take a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe he said you are with child, right?
Okay.
See, they want to call it a fetus because it doesn't sound like a child. It's a child the instant it's conceived.
That's all just semantics, right? Like, where do you want to draw the boundaries around child? Plus, having different terms for different stages of childhood is a perfectly normal thing to do, right? Like, we call some children infants. We call some children toddlers. We call some children adolescents, right? That doesn't take them out of the realm of child. And no matter what your anti or pro-abortion argument is, saying, well, it's still a child, doesn't actually answer any of the moral objections either way. It doesn't help. It's not a useful thing to say, right? If you want to say that I define it as a child from the moment of conception, okay, cool, now what? What do we do with that? Because you know where he's going with this is abortion, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a human. Life begins at conception. Every doctor knows that knows anything.
I mean, that is the first moment at which an identifiable individual member of the species comes to be, and it's certainly alive, but the question on abortion isn't whether or not the fetus is alive. Everyone accepts that it's a living thing, right? Because if it weren't, it would be dead, and it wouldn't be an abortion, it would be a miscarriage. That's why we have different words for these things. Carrie Bronson for $10 says, someone on my Facebook posted a Kent Hovind video to explain why atheism is stupid. I posted a link to the article about his latest conviction. Thanks for leading me to know this. Nice. Oh, that's awesome. Silent Tetrapod, who's been a member for 11 months and is at the tetrapod level, says, imagine that. Kent is a terrible father and human. Yeah, no, Kent is the worst. I remember when we started the show, and I just kind of thought of Kent as kind of an idiot, but like, you know, kind of an affable goofball, and that was it. Holy crap, did I not know the half of it. I didn't know the quarter of it. It's gotten so much worse as I've learned more about this man.
Bad.
Yeah, it's...
You know a lot more than I do, but even the things I know are pretty bad.
I know more things than I'm even allowed to say.
Right.
Blind Band for $4.99 with their first super on a live stream. Thank you very much. Says, first time in a Dapper live stream. Just want to say AIG is a bag of Kent Hovinds. We'll take a drink for that.
I like it.
Thank you very much, Blind Man. And thank you again for the first super on a live stream. I mean, I'm honored that people would do that, right? And they're like, you know what? This is the guy who I want to start supporting on YouTube. This is the first YouTube creator I'm going to support with a super chat. That's amazing to me.
Why do they keep this lie in the textbooks? I mean,
it's not a lie.
It's been proven wrong 125 years ago. Why do they want you to learn this when you take biology class?
Because one, it's true, and two, it helps drive home both embryology overall, as well as the evidence that embryology provides for the theory of evolution. Both of those reasons. That's why.
Science reasons.
Yeah.
What would be the logic for keeping this lie in these textbooks?
There's only one reason. Logic.
Yeah.
Justify abortion.
Yep. Take a drink. Jeez, man. None of this helps or hurts abortion, right?
I'm sure. I think pharyngeal arches are the key to the abortion debate.
Yeah, if we stop believing in pharyngeal arches, then therefore all the pro-choice arguments just are defeated, right? If there are no pharyngeal arches. Because, I mean, I remember all the times that I've had people... I've looked into abortion arguments, and all the pro-choice people were like, yeah, but there's pharyngeal arches, therefore it's okay to kill the fetus. And then all of the pro-life people were like, no, that's been disproven when Hegel was convicted of fraud in 18 whatever the hell. So it's not okay to kill the fetus because there are no pharyngeal arches. That is exactly how abortion debates always go.
It's pretty stupid.
They don't want you to think it's a human yet.
Just take a drink. Of course it's a human. look, there are bad pro-choice arguments, and one of the worst ones I've ever heard, and I have heard it here and there, is that it's not a human. That's dumb. It's a human. It's just that there are circumstances in which killing humans is okay, and the question is this one of them?
You're just killing a fish. You're just killing an amphibian. Just a reptile.
Just drink. Just drink again.
No, it's a human. See, the Lord told the devil...
Oh, by the way, I want to point out that the traditional time when Christians considered ending a pregnancy to be getting into the morally gray or immoral area through most of history was at what was called the quickening, which is more or less when the fetus starts, punching and kicking and whatnot. Basically, when you can put your hand on the pregnant person's belly and feel the baby doing stuff. That was called the quickening. And the idea was supposed to be that until then, the baby didn't have a soul, but then once it started kicking around, that's because it was ensouled. A soul had entered that body or been created in that body, whatever you want to say. It was not until fairly modern times that was pushed back by many Christian groups to the moment of conception. And there had, now to be fair, the moment of conception has been a minority opinion among numerous religious groups as for when, personhood starts. Also, the Old Testament assumes that until basically the first breath, that a child is basically not a full person in a legal sense. That's why the penalty for causing the end of a pregnancy through injury to the mother that does not kill the mother is seen as a property crime in the Old Testament and not as a capital offense like murder, which it would be if you attacked a woman carrying a child and then they both died. That would be, you would get the death penalty, right? You'd get lex talionis, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, life for life. Jake Nelson, who's been a member for this is the membership. Jake Nelson for $10 says AIG is a sack of slippery, slimy snakes and Bent is metal AF. All right, We'll take a drink. And yes, I agree with both of those sentiments.
I do my best.
So yeah, like the modern view of abortion that you get from most Christians today would largely be unrecognizable to Christians just a few hundred years ago. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's a argument to use. I just wanted to point it out that like this is a fairly unusual ahistoric moment in Christian views on abortion and pregnancy and the personhood of unborn humans and whatnot.
After he tricked Eve, you're going to crawl on your belly and eat dust the rest of your life. And he said, some seed of the woman's going to bruise your head. We went through all this before. How that Satan really wants to reduce the population of the world.
This is a point that Kent makes that has never made sense to me. What is the point of
doing a bad job
having fewer humans for Satan? What does that get Satan?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And there's a lot of people on Earth that's not working.
Yeah, Satan is apparently really, really crappy at this. And also, does Kent think that until the theory of evolution, people weren't ending pregnancies? Because that's not true at all.
He probably does think that.
He might, but here's a fun thing to know. There have been abortion recipes for various procedures, potions, salves, things to put up in places, whatnot, that are supposed to induce abortion for thousands of years, right? There are known recipes for abortifacients in writing going back thousands of years. Fits of morphology disproves evolution rage. Just gets one membership, and it went to Cross-Platform Adventures. Thank you very much. We'll take a drink for that. Oh, and yeah, as DM artificially selected Ceratopsian Wing says, also exposure was a thing people did. Yes. If you couldn't abort a baby and you had it and you still couldn't actually take care of it, it was pretty common in some places in the past to just leave it out in the wilderness. Yep. In fact, actually, the condemnation of exposing infant girls is a sort of like a minor obsession in the Quran. In fact, one of my favorite passages in the Quran deals with that, and it's when, in the final judgment, everyone is raised back to life, and one of the things that happens is all the infant girls who were exposed approach their parents to ask for what crime they were killed. Like, what crime did they commit that you just left me in the desert? And I find it chilling and a really evocative scene. Especially since, I'm not a big fan of exposing infants, because that's not cool. Fade to Gray gifted 1 Dapper Dinosaur membership, and it went to Logan. So thank you very much, Fade to Gray, and I will take a drink for that. Anyway, here we go.
He wants to destroy humanity. And we'll skip over all this part. You can get videotape number 1 for more on that.
I thought he wanted to corrupt humanity.
That makes more sense, but...
I guess if you want to just go with, like, Satan hates humans, and he would rather there just not be humans, then I guess it makes sense, but to do that, you're importing a lot of ideas about, like, the fall of Satan that are way post-biblical, which normally Kent likes to pretend that he's doing the whole sola scriptura thing, which means good luck getting any of that theology out.
About Satan's goal to destroy the world, to eliminate humans. And one of the ways to do it is by abortion. Here's a little Anna Rosa. She had her arm chopped off in a botched abortion. There's several different ways they abort the babies. One is they just inject salt solution right into the uterus.
All right, before we go into graphic descriptions of this, which, geez, if I thought this was going to be monetized automatically, I don't know what I was smoking. One of the things I want to point out is that the vast majority of abortions in, like, developed countries are done within a very small window of time after conception, and they're usually done with a pill. And yes, there are side effects that can happen with that pill. It is not completely safe or side effect free. There can be bleeding, there can be cramps, there can just be general pain. So, it's not like it's just take a pill, go about your day, and everything's going to be fine. It's still a bit of an ordeal, or at least it can be. But yeah, most of them are not conducted by hypersaline injections, physical dismemberment. Those things do occur, and they usually only occur in later stages of pregnancy. And the vast majority of abortions in later stages of pregnancy are not because it is an elective abortion. It's because there is something wrong. Now, that's not all of them, but I will say pro-choice people like to pretend that people are just routinely deciding at 7.5 months of pregnancy, like, nah, I don't want this one. And that's not what's happening, for the most part. I'm not going to say there are no elective abortions at 7.5 months, but it is misrepresented by pro-choice advocates often. I'm not going to say all of them, because I don't know all of them, but I've definitely seen them play up that idea, despite the fact that it's a tiny minority of such late-term abortions. Savage Geological Species Concept Cobra for $5 says, remember, there has been precisely zero theological development between Yahwism and evangelical Christianity. Yeah, sure. There's definitely been no evangelical development. Actually, I saw a tweet the other day from someone who was like, see, there's been... religions never change. They're just static. That's why they're dumb and wrong. And I'm like, since when have religions been static and unchanging? It's like, tell me you've never looked into the history of religions, please.
It's just a needle right through the outside, and the baby is burned by the salt. And the baby thrashes around in there and finally dies, and then is rejected by the body. Others,
I'm going to point out that even before the nervous system is developed, if you inject something with muscles with a bunch of salt, it's going to squirm around, whether or not it's in pain, right? Like, if you have a freshly killed octopus and you put soy sauce on it, the tentacles writhe around. Is that because the octopus is in pain? No, it's dead. So just pointing out that things thrash when they have salt on them, not really a great argument that this is causing pain and suffering. Donald Jaramillo for $2 says, the quickening when multiples battle in womb. Yeah. That would be another interesting interpretation of the phrase.
They cut the baby apart in little pieces and pull them out piece by piece. That's what they were doing with Anna Rosa. The mother was 7.5 months pregnant.
I doubt this story, but I'm probably also not going to go look it up.
Baby could have been born and survived. Cut the arm off, pulled the arm out and said, oh, well, it'll die. Well, she didn't. She survived. That
seems really unlikely. Especially given how amazingly good at healing, embryos are. Like, you can do a lot of damage to an embryo and it just heals right up. And that actually is something that tapers off, right? Like, kids will do things and get injuries that for you would like put you out for like a week. And they'll just go run around like a half an hour later. Now, I mean, not like broken bones and whatnot, but like, yeah, kids are tough. They're fragile in some ways, right? But like, they bounce back. There's a reason for that. It's because your ability to heal damage is higher the younger you are.
As far as I know, still alive today. Missing an arm. Everybody says, oh, that's terrible. Oh, I agree. What if they would have cut her head off instead? We never would have heard of Anna Rosa, would we? Did you know 4,500 babies were killed today?
I have no idea if that's accurate for the time he was giving this. I don't care.
4,500 more are going to be killed tomorrow.
All right, I'm done with preaching about abortion. We're skipping ahead a bit.
I got a brilliant idea. Let's see if it's really choice you're looking for.
Nope, still just preaching about abortion.
And the news media gives them all the coverage.
Actually, the majority of Americans, because this is an American man talking about politics in America, are in fact supportive of legal access to abortion. One of the ways you can tell is that every time it's been put to a vote, keeping access to abortion
these 6 people are going to march
has won. I don't know what the polls would have said when Kent was doing this, but there's a reason that every time it's put to a vote of the general populace, even in deeply red states, keeping abortion access legal is upheld in the popular vote.
Around town, and they're going to get all the news media coverage they want because they're coming. Here's this cameraman. He showed up to film. Instead of worrying about gun control, let's talk about sending you out. Well, what about the victims' families? Now you got three families that are, hurting and mourning, and for the rest of their life is destroyed. It ruins things. It's out there in the cafeteria or whatever and shooting everybody. Any kid, possible situation.
So I just want to, in case it wasn't clear to anyone, we went from abortion to school shootings, and I'm taking a drink because holy crap, Kent. My goodness.
Yeah, Kent does not want you to be monetized today.
No, he does not. Which is means I extra appreciate those 2 gifted subs and all those super chats. Thank you very much. They do help.
If you kill the baby,
oh my goodness,
then the mother, the rest of her life. So when Hitler's guards were killing the Jews.
Oh my God. Take a drink. I skip straight to Hitler. Thanks, Kent. My goodness, this is so terrible.
It was not murder. I expect that the other world, which has such deep sympathy for these criminals...
We'll take a drink again, it's still Hitler. My goodness.
Criminals, superior race. I went to Nuremberg, where the trials were the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan. Welcome to the last class of CSE 101.
Well, that was the rest of the class. We went from abortion to school shootings to the freaking Holocaust as the entire rest of that. Because remember, guys, if human embryos have pharyngeal arches, it apparently justifies abortion, genocide, and school shootings. Who knew? Jeez.
That's so dumb I'm drinking again.
I was feeling earlier today like this is going to be a particularly bad one for Kent. And I don't know why I thought that, but I was like, oh, this is going to be really, really bad, isn't it? And then I put it out of my mind. I was like, no, it'll be fine. And then here we are.
2. We will be, by now you should have taken your quiz from the class before. And then at the end of this class, we will give you the final.
Yeah, but the answers are just abortion, school shootings, and Hitler. So don't worry about it.
They're just in years. It's this year or that year.
Yeah. What year did Hitler come to power? It's an important thing to know.
Yeah. Final exam for you to work on. And you can, folks taking this class at home, you should take the final after you're all done and then send it in to us and we will grade that. We're going to finish some more things.
I would love to take that exam.
By the way, in case anyone's wondering why he's talking about people taking this at home and then sending in a graded exam or an exam to be graded, according to Kent at least, this whole CSE thing that he's doing, the 101 and 102, and I think there's even a 103 and maybe a 104 section, were, according to Kent, given for college credit. And there were a number of Christian colleges who were accepting your participation in this as college credit. For $2, Dutch Tunicate Official says, "Rip video monetization, Kent is the biggest AIG."
Mm.
You know what? We'll take a drink. And yeah, you're not wrong.
We began last week about lies in the textbooks. We covered a little bit about Hitler and
I also wanted to point out, we brought up Hitler. I'll take a drink. With the whole quickening, I mentioned that there was another less common idea, which was that, life actually did, or personhood did begin at conception. Another more common idea was, in fact, that life began, or personhood was endowed upon a baby when it took its first breath. And that's connected to the connection between breath and soul, or spirit. And so that's the idea that in taking that breath, that is itself evidence that the soul is now in the body, because the breath is the soul. That was relatively common in certain Christian groups for a while. I think it is largely where a lot of Judaism landed over the same time that Christianity was more or less landing at the quickening. But don't quote me on that. I'm not a rabbi.
his philosophy, Mein Kampf, his book that he wrote, which means my struggle. And in this,
you know what, Kent, we'll give it to you. You got that right. It does mean my struggle. Good job, Kent.
This book, Hitler shows his racism over and over and over, and his strong belief in evolution.
Okay, well, so Kent has never read Mein Kampf, because Hitler didn't believe, he rejected human evolution, at least. It's unclear whether or not he rejected evolution for non-humans, because he didn't really talk about it. But Hitler was very explicit about humans being a creation of some kind of creator deity. So yeah, we'll take a drink for Kent just lying about Mein Kampf. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have colored in many pages here. You can see Hitler.
I can't see, actually, Kent. In fact, I saw a significant lack of highlighting when you were flipping through it, but then again, I didn't see much, so maybe you're right.
Philosophy from his book. As I read it, it's a boring book to read. I mean, the guy was a lousy writer, for one, unless they translated it wrong. He's just I
mean, it's subjective, but yeah, he wasn't exactly known as the best writer. He was a better orator.
He wasn't too bright, I don't think. But he was really a motivator of people.
Let's see. Noram Deputz says, for $2, AIG is an organization that exists. This is unfortunately accurate. And Fade to Gray, watching Bigfoot go, says for $2, I feel like I need a brain degrimer after all that. Oh, yeah. No, this is a particularly vile version of Kent with Bent. Sorry about that, everyone. Yeah. Bug Archaeopteryx isn't a dinosaur bird. Says, wow, was not expecting this convo to be in a Dapper Dinosaur chat. Well, yeah. Sorry, every once in a while, Kent just goes into some of the worst stuff, and it's hard to predict when he's going to go that far into it. I called the abortion part, but I did not think that he was going to go straight from that into school shootings and the Holocaust. Like, geez, man.
So we're going to finish some more things, some lies in the textbooks that kids are exposed to every week. They go to school, they read these books, and they see things in there that have been proven wrong many, many years ago. And one of my hobbies is...
Well, apparently like that pharyngeal arches exist.
Well, besides that, I want to hear more. Yes. Lies in the textbook.
Savage Geological Species Concept Cobra for $5 says, what early 20th century Russian forgery does Kent sell again? That will be the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is basically a reprint of a French, opinion piece that was a hypothetical plan for the quote-unquote elites to take over the world. And then a unknown Russian person translated that into Russian, added a whole bunch of stuff about the quote-unquote elites trying to take over the world being Jews, and then just published it as if it were actually some secret meeting that a bunch of Jewish leaders had in Russia. Or I don't know if it's specifically supposed to be set in Russia, but whatever, it's what it's supposed to be. It is, in fact, fake, because it's almost exactly word for word, just a hypothetical idea from a French newspaper, if I remember correctly. So, yeah. No, but Kent sells it. But don't worry, though. He says he's not sure if he buys the whole Jewish part. Yeah. So, yeah, Kent is just openly selling blatant anti-Semitic propaganda that is known to be fake. So, Yeah. If anyone ever tells you that Kent Hovind isn't anti-Semitic, just point out that he's been selling the Protocols of the Elders of Zion since, like, forever. And, promoting it as, like, this is what the them are trying to do to us. Yeah, okay. And look, maybe Kent actually doesn't, honestly doesn't believe that the Jewish part is accurate. Dude, you're still promoting one of the most infamous works of anti-Semitism that has ever existed, right? It's been a motivating factor for anti-Semitism and for violence and things like that for a very long time, and you're just openly promoting it. You're not even selling it as, like, this is nonsense that people believe, and you should know what it says so that you can counter what they say by knowing what they're saying first, and then we can talk about why these things in this book are wrong. That's one thing, right? That's why I think it's okay to read that kind of thing, right? Because you want to go in to know what nonsense people are going to spout. But no, he's just promoting it because he's a conspiracy theorist. And most conspiracy theories are either anti-Semitic, have anti-Semitic roots, or are just a stone's throw away from turning anti-Semitic.
Collecting public school textbooks. We're going to try to finish this section today. I don't know if we can get through it all or not, but we'll work on it. They're going to teach the kids that the appendix is vestigial. Now, this would be a quiz question. The word...
By the way, I don't think we're getting another Tutu bent. I think you're going to be free next week.
Okay.
Vestigial means you don't need it anymore. There are no vestigial organs, but they tell the...
Okay, we're going to just take a drink for... There are no vestigial organs. Kent, let me know the next time you're able to better triangulate the location that sound is coming from by using your ear muscles.
Kids, the appendix is vestigial, wrong side. That means you don't need it anymore because
that's not what vestigial means. So first, it is true the appendix is not vestigial, which I'm sure is what Kent is going to go talk about. And that's because the thing that we used to think it was a vestigial version of, it turns out that it probably isn't homologous with that thing. So the original idea was that it was homologous to the similarly shaped... Oh, there's Mothra. We'll take a drink for Mothra. So, the original idea was that it was a homologous to the similarly shaped and similarly placed vermiform cecum, which in many animals is used to help digest plants that are heavy in cellulose, which is a very hard chemical to digest generally. In humans, it does not serve that function, but it also turns out it's almost certainly not actually homologous to that, which means it probably did actually evolve for the function it currently has. But more importantly, vestigial doesn't mean useless or non-essential or has no function. Now, Jake Nelson was just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Jumpy Fox, Captain Butt, Charlene McConnell, Soulcat, and Crusher the Croxagore. Thank you very much. Let's take 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And actually, Crusher the Croxagore is also a recent patron. So, there you go, Crusher the Croxagore. Now you're a patron and a channel member. Double dipping there. Which also, the name is a great reference to Warhammer. Warhammer Fantasy, specifically. Yeah, I had a Lizardman army back in the day. Which I'm sure is a surprise to no one. But vestigial, importantly, it just means it is no longer functional for the ancestral use, or it retains little of that original function. So, for instance, tails in mammals are usually used for things like communication, balance, sensory organs. Those are the 3 big things that mammals use them for. Very few mammals have prehensile tails, so that's not a typical use for the tail. Humans have a tail. It does not normally extend past the body wall, but it's there, right? It extends past the hips and a bunch of fused bones called the coccyx. Bent, you're a human, right?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure you have a coccyx because I believe you've injured it before, so you definitely know you haven't. Okay.
I have an injured coccyx.
Okay. Are you able to use your coccyx for balance?
I don't think so.
If you were able to, you probably might not have been injured in the first place, huh? Are you able to use it for communication with other animals?
No.
Okay. Have you ever been able to use it to sense your environment from behind so that it's harder for things to, like, say, sneak up on you?
I have not.
Okay, sounds like you have a vestigial tail. Now, does it do anything? Well, yeah, it's an anchor point for several muscles that are fairly important. Doesn't make it not vestigial. Mongoose, the king of the wastelands, with their third super chat on a live stream, thank you very much, says AIG is a mad pal of Kent Hovinds. This meme is getting more and more abstract, and I'm okay with that.
I like it.
We took a drink, thank you very much. Oh, and Crush the Crocscore just enjoyed one of the channel emojis with Godzilla. Alright, here we go.
Our appendix is smaller than the corresponding organ on a horse, for instance.
It's actually not corresponding. I mean, Kent is right for the wrong reason here.
Well, our ears are smaller than a horse's ears also, and probably our legs are smaller, and probably lots of things are smaller if you stop and thought about it.
Well, first of all, it's proportionally, Kent. And second, your ears still do the same basic thing that a horse's ears do, which is to hear things, right? Now, if humans were just in general deaf, then that would be a good argument for ears being vestigial, even if they were still selected for like sexual selection purposes, right? Like, let's say humans were deaf, but they found earless people to be gross and non-attractive. Therefore, humans retain ears. Well, okay, that would make ears vestigial. So,
it doesn't mean we're slowly losing it.
Yeah, no one.
No.
I'm going to take a drink for Kent, like, humans still have ears. Yeah, of course they do. Sound is an important part of most humans' lives. They use it to sense the environment around them.
Very much so.
Yeah.
People and to listen to music.
Yeah, but like for survival purposes and communication purposes, ears are very important. For communication purposes, I mean, while there are a lot of different sign languages and deaf people can communicate fully in them, most of the population doesn't know any sign language. I know very little American Sign Language, and it's the only sign language I know any of. I'm aware that others exist. I might be able to name a few, but like most people don't know any sign language, so it's a bit of a detriment there. Plus, if you're, like running through the jungle and you can't hear that the tiger is approaching or whatever, that might be a problem. Although it's probably not going to be a tiger because they're pretty quiet. Probably going to be more something like, some big herbivore warning you to get away, and you just don't hear it.
Just don't eat as much of the roughage that they do, and you don't need that to filter out whatever the appendix does. The appendix is not vestigial. Even the encyclopedias will tell you it is no longer thought to be a vestigial structure.
Correct, but not for the reasons that Kent is going to list, or at least the ones that he's implying right now.
It is where the immune responses are initiated.
I'm going to take a drink. That's not quite right. Okay. The appendix primarily serves as a reservoir for gut bacteria, so that when you have some infection that causes a loss of your gut biome, for instance, because of heavy diarrhea, or modern times because of, say, a course of antibiotics, the gut bacteria that are in the appendix can hang out there, survive that storm, a poop storm, if you will, or perhaps some other word that's a bit more rude, but less family-friendly. Then they can recolonize the rest of the gut. It also has a secondary function as basically like a makeshift lymph node, which means that, yes, some immune responses can be initiated in the appendix, but that's not its primary goal, nor is it the one place where immune responses are initiated. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Bent, but I believe that humans normally have many lymph nodes throughout their body.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Very many.
Okay. I know that you probably knew that because I think like you've had a job that involved like people going in with needles into lymph nodes or something and extracting.
Passing and finding aspirations.
And they didn't always like go into people's lower intestines, did they?
I mean, occasionally, but there were also many lymph nodes that were sampled for potential metastatic disease.
In fact, the ones that people are probably most familiar with are the two on the neck, the adenoid lymph nodes, because those are the ones that tend to get swollen up when you have a lot of different like head and respiratory type infections like colds and things like that. Donald Jaramillo for $2 says, smaller than the same organ on a horse? Godzilla. I'll take a drink for that. And yeah, I know what you're going for there. And yes, that's also a thing that humans tend to have smaller versions of. And yes, Dr. Don Hogg, or Hogue? I'm not sure. Let me know. Xenobiologist at large says duck penises are lymphatic power. That is true. Avian penises, where they exist, which is not in very many groups, it's mostly in Gallowenserae and ratites, they are in fact made of erectile tissue like mammalian penises, but rather than using blood as the erectile fluid, they use lymphatic fluid as the erectile fluid. So, yeah, which means that Viagra wouldn't work on a duck.
And people who take their appendix out have a much greater susceptibility to leukemia, Hodgkin's disease, cancer of the colon, and cancer of the ovaries.
I would need a citation on that one. I don't believe that for a second, because most of your immune response from things like that is for infectious agents like bacteria and viruses. Now, that's not to say that the immune system does not respond to cancers. It does, but you still, again, have lots of backup lymph nodes. But the primary defense against cancer is actually various forms of programmed cell death, so that most cells are actually programmed that when they start to turn a little bit cancery, they just self-terminate. So for cancer to actually become a problem, you not only have to have the mutations that cause that cell to start reproducing out of control, but you also have to have mutations to the anti-tumor forming genes that normally would kill those cells off so that they no longer function. That's one of the reasons why you're not constantly riddled with cancer, because your cells are, all the time, various cells of yours are having mutations that cause them to start reproducing out of control, but they then quickly self-terminate because they haven't had that combination of mutations. That's why you don't just die of cancer every time that, some of your cells reproduce, which is all the time, right? Without those tumor suppression genes, you wouldn't make it past 5. Jake Nelson for $5 says, or if you're running through the jungle and don't hear John Fogerty, Godzilla, Android user. Yeah, Android users never managed to get the emojis right, so we'll take a drink. And it occurs to me that we have gone a little bit past our normal break time, so we're going to take a quick break now. While I do things like get a fresh drink, because I'm also it got to the point where I was making the weird straw noises because I'm a drink. So it's time for me to get a new drink. In the meantime, please enjoy the musical stylings of Bent Hovind, which of course is metal
No
AF.
relation.
Yes, no relation. All right, see you in a few. Okay, we are back, everybody, and I believe that I even unmuted myself, and I think I even unmuted Bent. Bent, did I unmute you? Testing? Can you hear? Can everyone hear us? I think they can. I mean, I see the bar going green and yellow and a little bit into the red, so I'm going to presume that means they can hear us.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not just buying time so that I can upload a new set of frames to sheep it while I stream, because I'm trying to multitask. That would never happen. No. The stream has my complete and undivided attention, of course.
Absolutely.
Obviously. That being said, though, we are back, and as traditional, as is tradition, I suppose, I want to give a quick little commercial bit, right? So, those of you who are people who see YouTube ads just got a few, but I want to give a more personal appeal, which is to say, ads on this channel are by far the smallest segment of income, except maybe merch. They are not something that I would just give up, but they are a fairly small fraction of the channel's income. I've done the math, and I think that on most months, they're like 10 to 20% of the channel. And this channel is, in fact, supported almost entirely by the direct support of the people who view the channel. Without your support, this channel simply would not exist in the state where it's giving you consistently 3 and even occasionally 4 videos per week, with the only exception being that time that YouTube decided that one of these Kent with Bents was worth a YouTube community guideline strike, which they eventually did overturn after I harassed the crap out of them on Twitter and tried to, make it as much of a public stink as I could. But even during that time, you guys rallied and we had a GoFundMe that then more than made up for that fact. So I want to say first, thank you about that. And yes, please do hit like, because we are only narrowly avoiding the Bilbo. So you don't want to get Bilboed. But that being said, and there's Savage Geological Species Concept cover with 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. We're going to read off the names afterwards and take the drinks afterwards. But we'll continue on. So if you are someone who is not currently supporting financially, but you're interested in doing so, we have a number of great ways to do that. First is the Patreon. On Patreon, it starts as low as $1 a month. You can get a 15% discount if you go annual. You can get early access to like 26 weeks worth of videos. You can get access. That's like 6 months, by the way, right? Like we're 6 months out in terms of early access. When I upload, I'm hoping to upload a video this week. When I do that, that video probably won't come out until like July for the public, right? I'm making sure that you get your money's worth for this. At higher tiers, you can get your name in the credits. I'll say your name out loud. Every tier gets access to the Discord server where we hang out. I think it's a great place to be. I mean, it's not like it's perfect, right? We still have our, occasional arguments or whatever, but overall, it's a supportive community. We're a bunch of, nerdy people who like to talk about science and nerdy stuff like sci-fi and TTRPGs. We have a conlang section. We have a speculative evolution section in there. It's a lot of fun. There's also the joining the membership program with the channel. That's here on YouTube. There's a join button below this video. That starts at $1.99 a month. There's no annual option, but it does also, in addition to giving you all those same things, it also gives you the emojis, as well as getting your name to turn green, getting the cool badge. You also get you access to a few members-only videos, of which there are very, very few, but they do exist. So yeah, those are some great options. If that's not your speed, you don't want to do an annual or a monthly thing, we do have a few other options. There is the merch store, which is down in the description. There's also an Amazon wish list. If you're just feeling generous and you want to get me or Bent a little something, Bent also has a wish list that you can go and check out. And if none of that's right for you, if you're just not currently comfortable with financially supporting or you can't afford to, then please just make sure that you like and share my videos. Now, one last thing is, if you can't afford to support the channel financially, please don't. You and your family come before this channel. I do not want anyone going hungry or having to cut back on any essentials because they want to support this channel. That is not what it's here for. It is not important enough for you to do that. Please don't donate or pledge or anything like that unless you can afford it. Now, let's read out those names. I'm Not Your Grandpa, Jake the Surgeon, Jason G, John Hopkins, And Cronus Waters were all gifted memberships. And Rosina Keller said, "Is it your goal to give me nightmares? I keep dreaming 12 cats are standing over me as I lay paralyzed in bed. Oof, the worst paralysis demon. It's not my goal, but sorry it's happening. But here we go. Let's take 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Caden Slinker asks, what is Esoterica? I'm not sure who this is being asked to, but it is in fact a pretty nice YouTube channel run by one Dr. Justin Sledge, who is a scholar of historical, mystical, and magical practices. So he looks into the use of things like magical papyri, mystical traditions from various parts of the world, especially in like Jewish and Christian contexts. So like Kabbalah, various types of Christian mysticism, like hesychasm, things like that, right? And he also branches into things like, Greco-Roman Egyptian magic, pre-Roman Egyptian magic, things like that. So it's, if you're interested in historical magical practice, not in the sense that this is going to actually produce results for you in the real world, but in the sense of what were people doing with their magical beliefs and practices in the past. It's a great place to go look. Yeah. And he also has been running into problems with YouTube because the music that he uses in his intro is being falsely copyright claimed by a company that absolutely does not own the copyright to it. And he's having to contest multiple videos every single day because they're just copyright claiming all of them. So if you do, in fact, want to help out a YouTuber who is making great content and who is currently having some trouble with the YouTube copyright system, Dr. Sledge is a great person to support, and I'm a big fan, so there you go.
You do need your appendix. Now, it is true you can live without it. You can live without both your legs and both your eyes and both your arms also. It doesn't prove you don't need them.
Okay, but needing them has never been a part of vestigiality. The question is, does it do the ancestral function? Now, the ancestral function of legs is to walk with. Humans still walk with their legs, so they're not vestigial. The ancestral use for arms, at least in primates, is secondarily locomotion, but it's primarily manipulation of things like food, or secondarily things like tools. Bent, I'm not a human, but you are. Do you still manipulate objects in your environment with your arms?
Yes.
Okay, looks like they're not vestigial. There you go. Could I give you a link for Esoterica? I might be able to. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. Esoterica. Yeah, here we go. I'll just this is YouTube at the Esoterica channel, but I'll still put it in the chat. Yeah, here we go. There's at Esoterica. I guess if you go over there, let Dr. Sledge know that I sent you. He doesn't know who I am, most likely, but there you go. That's the new pin message, is Esoterica channel link.
You do need those things. This textbook tells the kids that the whale has a pelvis that is vestigial.
It is. The point of a pelvis, right, is to anchor the limbs, the hind limbs, to the axial skeleton, which is, your spine and skull and whatnot. And the reason that you have it is so that you can support weight with the pelvis, right? Because the pelvis is what transfers weight from the legs to the axial skeleton. Do whales support their weight on their axial skeleton by transferring it from their legs to their pelvis? And what do you think? No.
No.
No. Because whenever they have to support their own weight, you know what happens to whales? They just die.
Yeah.
It says, just imagine whales walking around. It's true. This is a book.
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? Would I call, like, Pakicetus or Ambulocetus a whale? I mean, a stem whale, I guess, but they're not a whale in the same way that, like, an orca or a blue whale is. It's, it's not exactly the same thing. It's like, would you call, I don't know, like, would you call Archaeopteryx a bird? I don't like to. But some people do, and that's okay too. Also, Lyric Soren has just joined the channel at the tetrapod level. Thank you very much, Lyric Soren. Everyone, send tetrapods and sessile tunicates. Do not send pelagic tunicates, Bent. I can tell you're about to do it right now. Don't do it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, you're going to do it. I can tell. Everybody betray me.
Oh, I misclicked a bit.
Oh, you
Maybe
did
try
it.
again.
Oh my goodness.
For 7 and 8-year-olds. Whales didn't walk around. They showed the kids the little bones in the abdomen of the whale and say this is a vestigial pelvis, to say you don't need it anymore.
Nope, that is not what that means. I'm taking a drink. That is not at all what vestigial means. This has always been a straw man.
This one says, the whale's pelvis is evidence of its evolution from four-legged land-dwelling mammals. Well, that's just sheer baloney. You can see the little bones way in the back there. I'll blow them up for you. Right there are those little bones they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to note a few different things, right? One is, you notice how the vertebrae anterior to these bones don't have hemal arches that are descending from the bottom of the vertebrae, right? But the ones posterior to it do. Now, if there were a better image, you could actually see that there's some differences in the vertebrae right above the pelvis, but whatever. You know what that is? That's a difference. You're transferring between lumbar and caudal vertebrae. Now, in the skeleton of most mammals, Benta, now I know you know what lumbar and caudal vertebrae are.
I don't have caudal vertebrae.
You technically do, in your coccyx.
Do I?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
they're fused.
Yeah, but you still have them. Now,
Fair.
where do you think in most mammals the transition occurs between lumbar into a few sacral and then the caudal vertebrae? Would it be... Go ahead.
I was going to say at or near the pelvis.
Exactly. So what's happening here in this whale skeleton?
The same thing.
Exactly that, right? So just based on the gross morphology of what's happening right here, where we have these paired bones that have that little arch there that looks kind of like a sacral arch, and it's associated with the transition between lumbar to sacral to caudal vertebrae, that on its own should be enough to conclude that this is a pelvis. This is a pelvis right here. It's tiny and weird and very reduced, but it's a pelvis.
Those are not legs.
I don't know, Kent. I mean, it's
are.
bones that have... Well, I mean, the pelvis bones up top aren't, but look at the thing that comes down from them. That looks like it connects right around where the pelvis is starting to form a little bit of a circle there, kind of like a acetabulum. And they even have a tiny little, what looks like a trochanter on them. Those aren't legs, but they're femurs. Or femora?
Femora.
Femora. We're going to go with femora. Thanks, Latin.
Can you imagine moving a 50-ton animal? Go, man, go.
No, Ken, that's the point. The point is that they're very obviously pelvic bones and the femora, but they don't move the animal, which is why they're vestigial, Ken. That is the exact
I don't know why you
point.
find that funny.
I'm going to take a drink because, like, this pelvis doesn't work for locomotion. How could anyone think it's a vestigial organ? For that very reason. I'm going to take that drink now. Ascension Tree for $10 with their 5th super chat on a live stream. Or super, it could be stickers in there too. For $10 says, off topic, but since I finally caught a live stream, what's your opinion on GE? I believe that's Godless Engineer. How do you feel about his edit speeding up representation of what you and Kip said about the resurrection? Here's the thing. Godless Engineer strawmanned my position in the title to that video, and it's also not a topic that I normally talk about. Kip Davis has addressed that video. I haven't even watched the whole thing, because quite frankly, it's a topic that he is much better qualified to talk about than I am. So as far as what my opinion is on GE, I think GE tends to be credulous about things that, if true, would be bad for Christianity on the grounds that if they were true, they would be bad for Christianity, which I think is a terrible heuristic. Because some things that would be bad for Christianity if they were true are simply false, and some things that would be good for Christianity if they were true are in fact true. So I think GE is he's oddly gullible in that way. And I also think that he has a extremely inflated sense of his own grasp of linguistics and grammar. Primarily because he took a look at a very ordinary description of very basic Greek grammar that Kip Davis gave in a community post and called it word salad. Apparently because, I don't know, he doesn't know what the genitive and vocative cases are, which is, I mean, that's like chapter 1 of your Greek grammar textbook, right? You can't get through a semester of Greek without being able to name the cases in Greek and tell at least their basic functions, right? Like, by the end of your first semester in Greek, you're going to know that the nominative case is for the subject of the sentence, the accusative case is for the object of the sentence, the dative case is for the indirect object of the sentence, the genitive case forms possessive constructions and a few other things. The vocative case, which is usually indistinguishable from the nominative case, but not always, is used for direct address. And you're going to know that certain prepositions typically take their object in various cases, whether it be accusative, dative, or occasionally genitive. So none of them take it in nominative case because, the subject of a preposition would normally end up either being in a nominative case or in the case that would be appropriate to its use in the sentence. That's like year one of Greek. You will have more than covered that. You'll probably have covered that in the first couple months or so. And GE was just like, well, there's Kip's word salad. It's like, dude, this is the most basic bits of Greek grammar. We're not even getting into like, how should you properly translate the aorist? Because I don't freaking know. So you little rascal who's been a member for 21 months says, do whales still have differentiated lumbar and sacral vertebrae, or have they merged into kind of the same type of thing? So I'm currently going a bit off of memory because I do not have like in-depth detailed knowledge about all of, cetacean axial skeleton anatomy. But if I remember correctly, there are a few subtle differences in the vertebrae right above the sacrum that indicate that they're probably sacral vertebrae. But for the most part, they're very hard to distinguish from the lumbar vertebrae. But again, I'm not sure that you should just accept my word on that. You might want to double check a source that is not currently drinking rum. So, there you go.
That's fair.
But anyway, in terms of the to summarize the answer to Ascension Tree, you should check with Dr. Kip Davis for a more in-depth look into GE's response to me and Kip's stream. Because for the most part, I mean, Kip was the one who was doing pretty much all the talking. I was just interviewing him. So, yeah, it's really Kip's thing. And he's done several responses. So, yeah.
You'd have to work awfully hard. They're not vestigial legs, okay? They never were. What those are...
What do you mean they never were? What does that mean? Like, originally they were functional legs, and so they weren't vestigial at that point?
Yeah.
I guess. It's a weird thing to say, because,
It means he doesn't know what vestigial means.
Yes, you know what? I agree with you. That is what it actually means, is he just has no clue what he's talking about.
Those little bones are places where muscles attach. And without those bones and those particular muscles, the whales cannot reproduce.
Hey, Bent.
Yeah.
I'm fairly confident that you're familiar with, like, the basics of, say, tetrapod reproduction, right? More specifically, say, amniote reproduction, right?
Okay. Sure.
Also, Dr. Don Hogue, I'm going to go with Hogue right now, xenobiologist at large for $2 says, Kent, that's the effing point with a Godzilla, so we'll take a drink for the Godzilla. And yeah, it is the point. Do some of the muscles involved in reproduction anchor to the pelvis in mammals that you're aware of?
I think so.
Yeah. Things like the pelvic floor muscles are attached to the pelvis. So, would you say that the fact that reproductive muscles attach to the putative pelvis bones of a whale is evidence that it's a pelvis, or evidence that it's not a pelvis?
I would think it would be evidence that it is a pelvis.
I would agree with you. Yes, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Now, does that fact mean that the whale can walk on that pelvis?
No.
Which makes it vestigial, because it still retains some of the original functions, but not the big main one. Rosana Keller for $9.99 says, I'll never forget when GE with gusto claimed the Big Bang started with the quantum fluctuations. That's an inherently unfalsifiable belief, just like the existence of any god. I actually don't remember that, so I can't comment on that, but I could imagine it happening. And yeah, it's at least currently not a testable idea. I don't think it's precluded by anything in science, but it's not currently testable. And so, yeah, to say that that's definitely what happened would, in fact, be a faith statement.
You can't get any more baby whales without those muscles and those bones, so that's not vestigial. So,
just gonna take a drink for, therefore not vestigial, which does not follow at all. Do I have my Oh, I do. Here we go.
Non sequitur.
Or maybe I don't.
Are uncoordinated.
I was gonna play the non sequitur video. Your facts are uncoordinated from Star Trek.
From Star Trek, yeah.
Let's see if I can get it to work.
Non sequitur. Your fact.
Oh, it's making sound, but people can't see it.
Hmm.
That's weird. What if I just put it way up at top?
Non sequitur.
No, it's still just coming through audibly. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm just going to delete that, because apparently it's just not working. Oh, that's sad. Oh, well. Oh, also, you know what? That's a Dapper as a Professional, because I actually ended up accidentally playing that audio several times for you guys. So we'll take a drink for Dapper as a Professional. Jake Nelson for $5 says, I have reproduced. My hips were very involved. Bow, chicka, bow, wow. Yeah, no, I'm not surprised that your hips were heavily involved in the event of you reproducing. It tends to be the case. Yeah.
Any author that tells the kids the whale has a vestigial pelvis is either ignorant of his whale anatomy, and he shouldn't be writing a book about it, or he's a liar.
Or, Kent, yeah, or you just don't know what vestigial means. That's also a possibility.
True.
Yes, that's the real thing.
Trying to promote a theory. Now, if you have some evidence for evolution, I would like to see it. I want to see it so badly, I'll give $250,000 for it.
Okay, so this is a reference to Kent Hovind's $250,000 challenge to demonstrate evidence of evolution. Here's the problem with it, though. If you actually looked into the terms, first of all, Kent Hovind himself was the primary judge of this. So if he said you didn't win, you didn't win. That's dishonest. Second, I don't have any evidence that he actually had that money put away anywhere so that he couldn't touch it, which I think is an important part of a challenge. I'm actually with Michael Toon on this, right? Because he has 3 aspects to make a challenge legitimate. One is that it have clear, set-out rules that cannot be changed on a whim. Another one is that it have an option for disputing the challenge issuer's proclamation of someone meeting or not meeting it with an independent third-party adjudicator. And third, that the money be put in some kind of escrow. So, for instance, Michael actually does have a number of challenges for flat earthers, and he has put the money in escrow, has a actual challenge rules listed with a hash so that he can't change it, because then it will show up as having changed. And he has like a time limit as to if he initiates a change, it doesn't go into effect until this many hours or days later. And he also has set up independent third-party arbitration mechanisms for if you dispute his finding on the challenges. That's a valid challenge. Kent did not have a third-party arbitration system, nor did he apparently have the money put in any kind of escrow or anything. And yeah, Vadim Samovsky Redchenko, yeah, by Michael Toon, I do mean indeed MC Toon. Not Mick Toon, but, So, another problem with Kent Hovind's thing is that while he calls it his challenge to show me evidence of evolution, when you actually read the rules, which to be fair, he doesn't change much, so good on him for that, you actually find out that what you need to do is show evidence that God could not have done whatever it is you're trying to use as evidence for evolution. The problem with that is that Kent thinks that God's omnipotent, which means that it's basically logically impossible for anything that exists to have not had even a possibility that an omnipotent agent could have done it that way. Which means that it's essentially logically impossible for anyone to ever collect on this, no matter how much evidence for evolution there is. So Kent's challenge, which he's since, he's taken that away. He's no longer offering the challenge. But it was just a fraudulent challenge that couldn't be met whether or not evolution were true. Goop23 for $2 says, oh, Kent's calling folks either ignorant or liars? Yes. Interestingly enough, yes, he is. Which is funny because, yeah, seems like a bit of projection there, doesn't it?
A little bit. Maybe a lot.
Maybe a lot, yeah.
There isn't any. All the stuff they show the kids in these books has been proven wrong. This one says humans have a tailbone that is of no apparent use.
Again? Nope, that's the video that just froze on Kent's end. So yeah, like we went over with the coccyx, it's not of no use, but it's not of the use that tails are usually used for.
Well, now hold on a minute. You do need your tailbone, okay? There are 9 little...
You don't need it. It's very handy. I wouldn't want a human to be without it, but, little
muscles that attach to the tailbone. I've got Gray's Anatomy in there. You can come read it if you'd like. Those little muscles are essential for numerous different functions. I won't tell you what they all are, but trust me, you need those little muscles and those bones. You need the tailbone.
Yes, but I'm just take a drink again, because again, again, for the millionth time again, being necessary is irrelevant to whether it's vestigial.
And I tell them, look, I was in a debate with one guy, and he said,
Do you think this is going to be a story that didn't happen, or do you think it's a real debate?
This is not real.
Okay.
He's making it up.
Maybe. We'll have to listen.
he said, I've got proof for evolution.
Okay.
Humans have a tailbone they no longer need. I said, sir, I taught biology and anatomy. I happen to know there are 9 little muscles that attach to the tailbone. And if you think the tailbone is vestigial, I will pay to have yours removed.
Yeah, I think this is a story that's at least so distorted that the event that he's describing did not in any significant way happen the way he's telling it. So I'll take a drink for a story that didn't happen. But also, this story is always the one where he's like, I will pay to have yours removed, as if people are just going to volunteer for random surgery for no reason to, own Kent? Here's a cool thing about medical procedures. There is no such thing as a risk-free medical procedure, which means if you don't need a medical procedure, you probably shouldn't undergo it because you're taking risks to no apparent benefit. Medical procedures are always a risk-to-reward thing. You and your doctor need to decide if the risks are worth the benefits of whatever medical procedure it is. Even if it's something as simple as taking an aspirin daily. There are risks to taking daily aspirin. They're not huge risks, but if you don't have anything that would be helped by taking a daily aspirin, you probably shouldn't do it because you're only taking the risks on board. That's why you have to actually talk to your doctor and get informed consent for medical procedures because they're not risk-free. Donald Jaramillo, for $2, said, Kent called it a tailbone, implying it was a tail. Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah, it's even he can't pretend that it's not a tail.
Bend over. It won't take but a few minutes and you will figure out, wow, that.
Even less should anyone go under the knife of non-licensed anything Kent Hovind, who probably wouldn't be able to sterilize a knife in the first place, and I promise his pocket knife is not sharp enough to act as a scalpel.
Was a mistake. We should not have done that. You do need your appendix and you do need your tailbone. There are no vestigial organs.
That doesn't follow.
Back when they started this concept of vestigial structures, they had 180 vestigial organs on the list. They said you don't need your tonsils, you don't need your adenoids, you don't need your pituitary gland, you don't need your... They had 180 things they said you don't need. Over the years, they slowly have diminished that down to none.
First, that's incorrect. There are, in fact, plenty of vestigial organs. The muscles that attach to your ears, from your skull to your ears, those are vestigial. They don't help you triangulate sound. Your erector pili muscles that help give you goosebumps, those aren't useful because they don't do anything like make you look bigger to scare off predators, nor do they allow you to trap significantly more air next to your skin by your hair, allowing you better thermoregulation. They don't do those things. So they are, in fact, vestigial. Further, this is one of those why is science kind of things.
Yeah.
Like, can you believe that science gained more information about anatomy and physiology? Why, yes, Kent, I can believe that. That's kind of why science is important. Vadim Slamovsky Radchenko says, and Kent's pocket knife is in Eric's pocket now. It's true. Eddie McCoy says, did the video freeze? Yes, the video froze on the actual video. I don't know why. So yeah. Vadim Slamovsky Radchenko says, our body hair is quite vestigial. Some of it could be arguably vestigial, some of it isn't. Like, for instance, pubic hair probably retains many of its primary functions, which are basically to serve as sort of a cushion for the various abrasions that might otherwise occur. There's a good argument to be made that head hair isn't vestigial because it has both sexual selection and there may be some kind of other function going on there. Eyebrows are certainly not vestigial, neither are eyelashes. So it varies, right? But like your arm hair, yeah, probably vestigial. You could probably make that argument. So, yep.
I guess you need it all, okay? But they were so desperately looking for evidence for this dumb theory of evolution that they jumped on this vestigial structure idea. Now, think about the logic, though. Even if there were vestigial organs, there aren't any, but if there
Kent.
were, that's the opposite of evolution.
No, Kent, that's you not understanding what evolution is.
Isn't that losing something, not gaining something?
Well, no, it's usually reducing something, Kent. But so what? Evolution isn't the just keep bolting on new things. In fact, evolution really can't bolt on new things.
Man.
Every new structure that you ever find in an organism is actually a modified version of a previously existing structure.
Now, how does that work? You lose everything until you have it all?
Actually, yeah, you could make that argument. Like, hey, Ben, could you put a hand in front of the camera? Hey, did you know you had to lose a fin to get that hand?
What?
Yeah. You lost your fin. That's not a fin. Hey, do you have a jaw?
Yes.
Well, too bad, because that means you just lost a gill. Yeah.
Shucks.
Yeah. And you can do that for all sorts of things. Like, hey, do you have bones? Well, I guess you lost your nice, flexible, cartilaginous skeleton that was hard to injure, didn't you? Yeah. See? Look at that. Everything you name, you can argue as to what you lost to get it. That's kind of what evolution is. And if you want to define all evolutionary change as a loss of something, you technically can. But it's obviously dumb. And it doesn't become dumb, or sorry, it doesn't become less dumb when Kent is talking about it in terms of vestigial organs.
I mean, you don't need to be too much of a genius to figure that out. That's not going to work very well. Now, if something is designed, it demands a designer.
Okay, yeah, but I feel like you're about to beg the question, Kent.
Somebody designed these glasses. Even though it's 100% natural materials, there's a designer involved.
Yeah, and we know that for a few reasons. For one thing, we can watch people design glasses. We can talk to people who design glasses. We can look back in history to see who invented the eyeglasses. And also, there's this thing that eyeglasses don't do, at least to my knowledge. Now, I don't normally wear glasses, but Bent, you do.
Sometimes.
Have you ever noticed your glasses reproducing and having baby glasses?
No.
Okay. So, could they evolve?
No.
Okay. Now, you're sure that you've never seen your glasses like give birth to little tiny baby glasses?
Very sure.
Okay.
Positive.
Positive. All right. I just wanted to check because, look, I mean, you have more experience with glasses than I do, so what do I know?
Yeah.
If you're walking along the beach and you see a pair of glasses laying in the sand, you automatically recognize them as designed. You do
Yeah, for those reasons I just listed.
not recognize them as a natural product of the waves beating on the sand, because glass is made out of sand, you know.
I mean, it's made out of melted sand, Ken, so if I were to try to propose a naturalistic mechanism for creating glasses without intelligent intervention, it would have to involve considerable heat. But okay.
It's just obvious there's a designer involved. This is, as far as I know, the world's largest rock group, Mount Rushmore.
That was a joke that didn't land.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, because he's trying to imply it's a rock band, but in fact it's just Mount Rushmore. Fun.
Know a bigger one? Let me know. Stone Mountain's pretty big, but I don't know if it's bigger than that or not. Do you think there's any way these four faces could have appeared on this rock by chance?
No, because we have historical records of how they actually appeared. And we also know that they form shapes that are actually pretty susceptible to erosion, which means that over time they would not persist in that shape, which means there's really no good naturalistic pathway to get there. But that's the thing, right, Kent? We have actual reasons why this couldn't happen. So comparing this to evolution, where we can in fact see reproduction with heritability and with imperfect heritability, so that new variations arise through mutations, and because we can see things going on like natural selection, sexual selection, genetic drift, and everything, we have a mechanism for how organisms got to be diverse and have the anatomies and physiologies and diversity that they actually have. We don't have that for rock faces. Astro Ryu for $4.99 said, missed most of the stream, but does Kent know how that glass can form in basaltic geometric shapes? I doubt he does. Such as the exoplanet with glass rain? Yeah, no, I can't imagine he knows about that. He'd probably reject it if he even heard about it. So yeah, no, I very much doubt that he's heard of that. But then again, to, I guess, somewhat come to his defense, volcanic glass and glass rain do not form, like, eyeglasses. So, you know.
Do you think the wind could have done that?
No, because the wind would actually tend to round those shapes out, right? which means it's fundamentally unsuited to doing those things. But if you said, hey, do you think that wind and rain could have caused that boulder that used to be in New Hampshire called the Old Man of the Mountain to form? Yeah, I do. Even though it kind of looked like a face? Again, yes. Because it only kind of looked like a face. And it didn't have all those sharp, distinct features that erosion would tend to get rid of, not preserve or create.
Or the water erosion, or maybe thermal expansion of the rock. When it heats up, it expands. Or exfoliation, where pieces flake off automatically. No, I don't think so. Exfoliation, by the way, Eric, if you use that term in earth science, you see that at the bottom of every rock cliff, like the one we climbed in El Capitan and Devil's Tower.
Okay, I'm taking a drink for Kent having climbed El Capitan, which is a mountain in Texas. I'm going to tell you why I'm taking a drink for this later. You know what El Capitan is made of?
Mm-hmm.
Coral.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's an entire mountain made of coral, buried in what Kent thinks is the middle of the flood. How could you get an entire mountain of coral that starts and ends its growth during the flood? And we know it starts and ends because it's in situ. It's not all jumbled together. It's actually arranged as coral grows. So Kent climbed a literal mountain of evidence against the flood of Noah, which I find to be amazing.
That's a little ironic.
Just a bit. Kerry Bronson for $5 says, I'd sooner believe wind made Mount Rushmore than that the flood made the Grand Canyon. Yeah, I mean, they're both similarly implausible. I'm not sure if I would assign one or the other a higher or lower probability, but they're both ridiculous ideas.
There's a huge pile of broken off pieces. Every year, water gets up in the top in little tiny cracks. The sun will expand it and crack it. Water gets in and freezes, pops off little flakes. Little pieces are constantly popping off every year, and they end up at the bottom in a big, huge pile.
This is true. I guess I'll take a drink for it. Yep, erosion is a thing that happens, and he's describing one mechanism of it.
And that's called exfoliation. I don't know how to spell it. You can look it up.
I'm not taking a drink for it, but it's just another bit of evidence of Kent's near complete lack of literacy skills.
It's not that hard to spell.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's like Kent gives every indication that he is functionally illiterate. And I'm not saying that there aren't that's like a moral failing or anything, but if you're going to present yourself as some kind of expert on the Bible and dinosaurs, and as a guy who collects textbooks and reads through them to find out where the lies are and whatnot, those are all things where literacy is important. So it's kind of like if someone's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a chess champion," and you're like, "Okay, hey, I don't understand what en passant means in chess, like that rule. I don't get it. Could you explain it to me?" And then they just can't. Chances are that's not a chess champion then.
Probably not.
Yep, because they might be able to explain that rule to you. Yep, it's not the most common rule that comes up in chess, but it's definitely a rule that actual champions would know. In fact, I don't think it's ever come up in a game that I've actually played.
Oh, I use it all the time.
Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't play very much chess.
And then I lose.
Well, My Unfinished Chapter 1 for $5 says, my dependence on glasses is why I'm anti-creation. The development of glasses required a lot of curiosity, which creationism discourages. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, creationism, at least under its modern guise, definitely discourages the kind of innovation and curiosity that would lead to innovations like that. Starsong knows what en passant means, or what it is. Good. You might plausibly be someone who's good at chess then, in that case. I don't know if you are, but yeah.
But that's a process where this stuff... So I always say, do you think wind or water or exfoliation or thermal expansion caused this? No. This was designed by a guy named Borglum. Took him years and years to build it. Design demands a designer.
Okay, that's fair. That follows. But you still have to go to, and here's why I think that organisms are designed, and then from there you can then say, well, then they had a designer. You don't get to just say, well, organisms seem designed to me, therefore designer. You actually have to have reasons, Kent. You're not getting there. It's trivial that if something was designed, it was designed by someone or a group of someone's. That's not a significant thing to put into the conversation. Everyone knows this. You're not making any novel points. You're not even making a point that argues in favor of your conclusion.
The evolutionists have never come up with an answer to that argument.
That's because it's not a damn argument, Kent. You haven't gotten to the point where it's an argument. You're just long-windedly setting up a premise. A premise that's uncontroversial, I'll grant you. But yet, you're not making an argument. I'm going to take a drink for that. Kent just doesn't know what an argument is.
They try awfully hard, but they've never been able to answer the simple question, if something is designed, why don't you think there's a designer?
No one thinks that something was designed without a designer, Kent. That's not what's happening right now. The position of people who accept evolution is not that organisms were designed, but there wasn't a designer. It's that they were not designed in a teleological sense. Now, you can talk about it teleonomically, where you talk about how the hand is designed, quote-unquote, to grip things. But that's the analogy, right? That's just an easy way to phrase it. When you actually drill down into what's actually going on, there isn't a designer, and it's not designed.
There had to be a designer. What they're doing now in the books, and it's pretty tragic that kids have to face this kind of stuff. Here's a 2000 textbook. They are being taught that things have adapted to their environment.
Also, sorry about the video freezing. I didn't know that was going to happen, so my
Yeah,
apologies.
that might be the rest of the video, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be.
That's the word you got to watch now. They use that phrase, adapted. This one says, how are plants adapted to their environment? Then it says, the pitcher plant has adaptations to help it get nitrogen.
Now, an interesting thing about this is that Answers in Genesis and the Institute for Creation Research, the ICR, the two biggest creationist organizations, they are all on board with adaptation. They love to talk about how things are adapted and how that was a provision that God made that allowed these different kinds to adapt to different environments. So I just find it amusing that Kent is now complaining about the word adaptation, whereas most professional young earth creationists, absolutely embrace that term. They love that term. So it's not really an argument against Kent or anything. It's just an interesting thing to point out where Kent deviates from more, I guess, mainstream creationism, which is weird to say because it's like, this is mainstream 9/11 was an inside jobism. Like, it's already completely fringe, so saying that it has a mainstream seems weird, but it kind of does, so I guess. Or maybe it's closer to, like, mainstream flat earth. Because you could say that, like, using, like, the Gleason azimuthal equidistant map is the mainstream of flat earth, and people who use different maps are outside the mainstream. Yeah, but, like, it just feels weird to say that there's a mainstream for flat earth because it's so fringe anyway. But,
Why don't they say it was designed?
Because it doesn't seem to have been designed, Kent. That's your argument to make. Savage Geological Species Concept Cobra for $5 says, it's fine. The video works as well as Kent's brain's thinky parts. Yeah, it's true. I can't technically say that Kent has no brain because clearly his autonomic nervous system is doing just fine.
Yeah.
So, technically he must have a brain.
Would you say your car door is adapted to let you into the car?
No, but
That's stupid.
I'm gonna double check.
No.
And you've had a car for a while.
Yes.
Okay. This is gonna be a similar question about the glasses. Have you ever seen your car produce baby little cars?
No.
Okay. How confident are you on, like, a scale of 1 to 10?
Very confident.
Like a
10.
9? 10? Okay. All right.
10.
Just double checking. So do you think that your car could adapt to a new environment by producing a population of baby cars with genetic variation, some of which would be better adapted to new environments than others?
No.
Okay.
That's nonsensical
Weird.
and ludicrous.
Because without that, this is a really bad analogy, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very bad.
Interesting. It's almost like either Kent is intentionally making a bad analogy, or he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. Or maybe both. I don't know.
I think somebody designed the car door to let you in.
Alex Sparkle says, stop giving me ideas for SCPs. Dude, that is already an SCP. There's the crabs that look like buses. Already an SCP, buddy. That ship has already sailed.
Into the car, right? It's not adapted. This one says, gills are an adaptation to living in water.
Roasted
This is weird because Kent believes in adaptation.
Yeah, he does, right? Because he'll talk about
He calls it microevolution.
Yeah, exactly. So,
or he calls microevolution adaptation.
I don't know if he uses that exact term, but it's certainly more or less the same thing. Roasted Keller for $1.99 says car doors cannot have babies, which is very true. And then Dr. Don Hogue, xenobiologist at large, says expert on dinosaurs in the Bible and dinosaurs in the Bible. Yes. Yeah, Kent does think the behemoth and the Leviathan are dinosaurs, which they're very much not. In fact, actually, speaking of Kip Davis, who I referenced earlier, I have a whole stream with him and Vishanti in which we talked about Behemoth from Job 40 and why it is very, very, very much not a dinosaur. And we talked about what it actually is, which is sort of a legendary or mythical chaos beast that is an embodiment of the dangers and chaotic nature of the wilds on land, which is male and contrasts with the female chaos monster Leviathan, who represents the chaotic, destructive forces of the sea. So, yeah.
Why don't they say a design feature?
Because you have to demonstrate that it's designed, Kent. There is already a mechanism that is well accepted that does not involve a designer for how organisms got to be the way they are. If you want to say, no, they were designed, you have to present evidence of that, and simply saying, well, some things in the world were designed, therefore everything was designed, is not a good argument, because that's one of those non sequitur things that the robot from Star Trek should be telling us about, except for some reason the damn video won't play.
Yeah. That's a shame.
Well,
it really is.
They don't want to use the word design because then some kid's going to say, who's the designer?
Taking a drink. That is not why. It's specifically because there's no evidence that it is designed, Kent. That's your job. You are currently outside the mainstream of science, and you want to be taken seriously within science with your currently not accepted ideas. That means the onus is on you to provide arguments and evidence for your ideas. It's not my job to show you why, despite being designed, I don't think something had a designer. I don't think it is designed. If you disagree, great. Bring forth your evidence. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, it's always cars, isn't it? Let's clip Erica saying, my brother in Christ, those are cars. Cars don't reproduce for use in these circumstances. Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I love that line from her. Oh, man. Godless Granny, who I think this is your first super chat on the channel. Welcome, Godless Granny. For $5 says, I'm stealing the car analogy defeater for my response to AIG. I'm recording tomorrow. Awesome. I look forward to taking a look at your AIG recording. I know that I'm not I'm infrequently visibly present in like comment sections and live chats, but that doesn't mean I'm never there. So yeah. So I do appreciate it, Godless Granny, and thank you for the super chat. And for just being here.
They don't want to have to answer that question. Now think about this. If gills are adapted, if fish have adapted gills to live in the water, how did they live before they adapted the gills?
That's a great question, actually. That really is a good question. You have any guesses, Bent?
I don't know.
It's diffusion. Did you know that most salamanders lack both gills and lungs? So how do they get oxygen?
Through diffusion.
Yep. Their skin is porous, and oxygen diffuses across their skin into their bloodstream. They don't need specialized breathing organs.
How convenient.
Yeah. It turns out that when you're small enough and simple enough, diffusion is enough. Planarians, or flatworms, as they're commonly called, also don't have any specific respiratory organs that bring in oxygen. They get their oxygen through diffusion. Oh, Godless Granny mentioned me in her script. Thank you very much, Godless Granny. I really do appreciate that. You didn't have to. I would not have complained if you just took that analogy and ran with it, but I really do appreciate the acknowledgement. So yeah, it's a great question, right? Because it is something that it's hard to fathom, right? That's why I asked Bent if he had any guesses, because I suspected he probably didn't. Because yeah, it's not obvious what it is. But if you know your evolutionary biology and you know what animals exist and stuff like that, it's actually, yeah, it's diffusion. And you can tell because there are currently animals that live in the water that use this exact mechanism to oxygenate their bodies. I was going to say blood, but like planarians don't have blood technically, so like you can't say oxygenate their blood. So yeah.
You say, oh, they didn't live. None of them lived. For millions of years, they all died.
That's a joke. Take a drink.
That's real brilliant, right?
Kent is the only one who lauged.
I had a few people I'd love to throw in the lake and keep them down there for a few million years and see if they...
Sure, toss them in, see if they can adapt some gills real quick. Yeah, sure, I've met a few like that.
See, the problem is that what Kent is conceptualizing is a modern fish with all its complexity, its size, its current metabolic needs and everything like that, but that just doesn't have gills. And yeah, obviously that's not going to work. But that's not what the ancestors of fish would have looked like or been like before they evolved gills, because it was the evolution of gills that allowed them to reach their current levels of metabolic activity, their current levels of complexity, their current sizes and whatnot, right? Kent is reversing the order in which this happened. And it's actually a common thing with creationists. A lot of them imagine that evolution works by introducing fully formed organ systems one at a time. So you start with, according to these creationists, you start with like a blob of cells, and then suddenly it just evolves gills. And now it has gills, but it doesn't have a heart, it doesn't have a brain, it doesn't have a digestive system. It's just a blob of cells, but it's got gills. And then later on, somehow it gets a digestive system. So now it can both breathe and eat. Isn't that great? But that's not how evolution works, right? And you can actually see animals that currently don't have all the organ systems that you associate with modern organisms, right? Like I talked about planarians. They have a digestive system, but they barely have a circulatory system, and they don't really have a respiratory system. Okay. You can look at other things like jellyfish. They have a nervous system, but they don't have a brain. They don't really have a respiratory system. They do have a digestive system, but it's extremely simple. But they have eyes, which is kind of weird and surprising, because, like, what do you do with eyes without a brain? And yet, here we are. So, this is just this really poorly conceived notion of how evolution works. And I don't know that it's a straw man or if it's just a fundamental misunderstanding. I know that in some cases it's probably a misunderstanding. There was one creationist I debated, or no, I actually ended up not debating him, but I think Erica did, and I was sort of in negotiations to debate him. I think it just fell through. I'm trying to remember his name, because we're going to end after I make this point. But let's see if I can find it on my channel. Bill Morgan. He is notorious for this. That's his name. Yeah, this is August 8th, 2019 is when I made that video about Bill Morgan. That's an old one.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah. So he'll come in and he'll say things like, so how did what came first? The circulatory system, the nervous system, or the skeletal system, or the reproductive system? And he'll just name off these organ systems. And while there is an answer, he imagines modern animals just minus these organ systems. But that's not how it worked, right? The earliest bilaterian animals were just simple worm-like creatures that probably had a basic nervous system, probably not a brain. They had a simple tube for digestion. They didn't really have a heart. They probably had an open cavity surrounding between the outermost layers of the epidermis and the digestive system that was just filled with some fluid that just kind of diffused nutrients and oxygen around. That's not a modern organism minus a couple organ systems, right? Like, that does not adequately describe a dog that just doesn't have a heart or a skeleton. So, it's a very frustrating misunderstanding about the basics of how evolution works. But that being said, and yes, I know I said it again, let's end the stream here. Benj, do you have anything that you want to announce for people? Like, we know you have a Patreon wish list down in the description, so you can check that out.
I'm going to be on Top Hats Off tomorrow for Power Rangers Jungle Beast.
Exactly. Assuming no one else backs out, we currently have the what I'm going with is the minimum number of people to play. So the plan is that at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, we will go on to Top Hats Off, my other channel, and play some Power Rangers Jungle Beasts. Speaking of Power Rangers, also, if you're a channel member or a patron, and you have linked your account that you got that membership or patronage with to your Discord, and are therefore in the Discord server, you can go watch some Power Rangers Wild Force with us. I almost said Mystic Force, but that's several seasons down the line. So yeah. And also, let's take a look at what is coming up on the channel. So, on Thursday at, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Silly Similes, David Gottlieb, Incoherent Shouting Moron, part 1 of 3 is coming out. That is about a Orthodox rabbi who likes... He usually goes by David Gottlieb, but in the video that I used to base this on, he's consistently called David Gottlieb. So I went with the David in the title, because that's what the original video used. I know that he more often goes by David. He uses David in his own website. Whatever, I don't care. If he really is upset about it, he can email me, and if he asks me to, I'll change the A to an O. So yeah, that's coming out. And then on Saturday, the plan is currently to have another Dapper Reacts. We'll still be going over, Robert Carter, and his nonsense talk about dinosaurs. And then next Tuesday is another Kent with Bent, and unless someone is extremely generous here in the next few minutes, it will not be involving a Tutu. Yeah. Nor, Bent, are you getting a free pizza today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had free pizza.
That's true. Dr. Don Hogg, Xenobiologist at Large, for $2 says, Ghidorah, we'll take a drink for that. In 2019, you mean one PC pre-COVID? Yes. Yes, that was in fact done in one PC. Yeah, it was in that heady time before COVID-19 ruined all sorts of stuff. It was actually still back before I had quit my last job. Yeah, I was still flying around the country fixing electrical panels, which I actually quit shortly before COVID-19 really hit. And I realized after it hit that I would have had to quit that job anyway, because that was a job that didn't just get suspended and it couldn't be done all remote. And I have some susceptibilities to respiratory infections that meant that I wouldn't have continued doing that job. It would have been like life-threatening for me to continue doing that job in any capacity.
That's not good.
Yeah, so instead, I just spent all of 2020 in my apartment in Phoenix, drinking way too much because it was the only way I could get to sleep because of the absurd amounts of stress I was under daily with an existential threat looming just outside the apartment every single day. So, glad that's not the circumstance I'm in anymore.
Yeah.
So... with that horrifying look into past Dapper's life. And before you ask, yes, Ceratosauruses can get COVID-19. Just like dogs can, I think. I don't know. I know some big cats can. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for all the support. I hope to see all of you in a couple days for the premiere of the David Gottlieb Part 1 of 3. And again, if you remember our patron, get in the Discord. And we're going to be watching Power Rangers Wild Force in just a few minutes. And I hope to see you all later. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Stay safe out there. And we're out. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Hovind, Phil Javara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Denny5252, Elron Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Monkey They Them, Robert Carpenter, Sphincter of Doom, Vollus, Eddie McCoy, Eta V, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.